The dawn was slipping over the horizon, but the dim illumination didn't faze the men and women running up the California mountainside. The keepers of Lighthouse Security Investigations West Coast enjoyed their downtime training, throwing in good-natured competition along the way. Frank "Hop" Hopkins darted past two others, swiping the underbrush from his path, his thick legs surprisingly agile as he pounded the dirt underneath his booted feet. He was big. He'd always been big. His mom often said that she thought she'd never get him pushed out, and once he took his first breath, he'd squalled loud enough to bring the nurses running. Of course, as her oft-told story continued, she added that he'd been talking ever since. That thought hit him as he continued up the path, reminding him that he needed to call home later that day. Loose gravel gave way underneath his feet, and he almost lost his balance. Bennett shot past him. "Fucker," Hop grumbled, not sure if he referred to himself or his coworker and friend, speeding up as they rounded a curve. He ran through the forest filled with oaks, redwoods, sycamores, maples, cottonwoods, and other native trees he was still learning about. Much of his youth in Tennessee found him with his grandfather and cousins, tramping through the woods, listening as his grandfather taught them all about the surrounding nature. Now, wherever he was, he learned as much as he could, thinking that one day he might be lucky enough to pass on that knowledge to a child of his own. "Yeah, well, I gotta find a woman first." His thoughts were interrupted by the sound of more approaching bootsteps hitting the ground. Increasing his speed, he raced past Bennett. Poole and Dolby were on a different trail, but he had no idea how close to the top they were. Same with Abby and Natalie. With 75 acres of undeveloped land, consisting mostly of national forests adjoining their main lighthouse compound, they had plenty of room to train without landing on top of each other. But now, he wished he knew where they were, considering the loser had to buy the beer for everyone at the bar tonight. Another sound caught his ears as he watched 3 adult mule deer and 2 fawns dart past. Probably in hopes of not only seeing who was running through the forest, but attempting to stay out of danger's way as well. His attention on the nature around him would cost him the win, but finally, skirting around a fallen log, he raced to the flag he spied tied to a tree near an overlook, arriving just as 3 other keepers were reaching for it as well. "Shit, Hop! How the fuck can someone so big run so fast?" Leo groaned, bent over at the waist as he sucked in air, one hand flat against a tree trunk and the other wrapping around the approaching Natalie, who was panting just as much. Looking over, he grinned at the muscular but leaner friend. "Track and field, as well as football and wrestling." "Yeah, well, shot put doesn't count," Jeb complained. "Didn't do shot put. My ass was running distance," he said, grabbing a water bottle from the pack that Teddy had brought earlier, and falling to the ground as the rest of the keepers rounded the bend, racing forward. "Distance?" Leo didn't hide his incredulity. "Yeah, the football coach made us. Said it'd keep us in shape for the summer practice." Their boss, Carson, was at the top with his stopwatch, a wide grin on his face. "Best times yet. So that means I'll buy the first round tonight." They cheered as they sat near the overlook, enjoying the fresh air, surrounding nature, and the privacy their facility offered. Hop reached behind and grabbed the back of his sweaty t-shirt, jerked it over his head, and swiped his dripping brow. Leaning back against a tree trunk, he soaked in the view and couldn't believe his good fortune. Carson Dyer, a former Army Special Forces and CIA operative, opened Lighthouse Security Investigations West Coast after partnering with Mace Hanover, who started the LSI franchise in Maine. They hired former military special operators and others who fit their specific requirements. Called keepers to honor the old lighthouse keepers guiding others to safety, they worked in an elite environment and offered a specialized service. Hop couldn't imagine a better job. What he loved most was that every day was different. Some days they worked on specialized security design, much more intricate than what a typical security company would provide. Others did the installations after LSIWC created the design. They provided security, but not the ballyhooed hulks watching over the stars kind of bodyguarding. They operated under government contracts as well as being called in to work with the FBI on cases where the need for circumventing red tape made it worth the capture.